wets them in the tepid water of the jar, and, if he has any pain, applies them to the part affected. This having produced perspiration, the door is opened, and the well baked patient comes out and dresses. For fevers, for bad colds, for the bite of a poisonous animal, this is said to be a certain cure; also for acute rheumatism. For the cure of wounds, the Spaniards found the Mexican remedies most efficacious. Cortes himself was cured by one of their doctors of a severe wound in the head, received at Otumba, through which we lately passed. For fractures, for humours, for everything they had their remedy, sometimes pulverizing the seeds of plants, and attributing much of their efficacy to the superstitious ceremonies and prayers which they used while applying them, especially those which they offered up to Tzapotlatenan, the goddess of medicine. A great deal of this knowledge is still preserved amongst their descendants, and considered efficacious. For every illness there is an herb, for every accident a remedy. Baths are in constant use, although these temezcallis are confined to the Indians. In every family there is some knowledge of simple medicine, very necessary in haciendas especially, where no physician can possibly be procured. There is a hill upon 's property said to contain much buried treasure. There are many traditions here of this concealed Indian wealth, but very little gold has been actually recovered from these mountain tombs. Buried gold has occasionally come to light, not by researches in the mountains, for few are rash enough to throw away their money in search of what would probably prove an imaginary treasure, but by accident, in the ruins of old houses, where the proprietors had deposited it for safety in some period of revolution, perhaps no later than at the time of the Spanish expulsion. Some years ago an old and very poor woman rented a house in the environs of Mexico, as old and wretched as herself, for 4 reals a week. It had an old broken up stone patio, inner courtyard, which she used occasionally to sweep with a little old broom. One day she observed 2 or 3 stones in this patio, larger and more carefully put together than the others, and the little old woman, being a daughter of Eve by some collateral branch, poked down and worked at the stones until she was able to raise them up, when, lo and behold! she discovered a can full of treasure, no less than $5,000 in gold. Her delight and her fright were unbounded, and being a prudent old lady, she determined in the first place to leave the house, and next to bring in her treasure, poquito a poquito, little by little, to a room in Mexico, keeping the old house as a sort of bank. She did so, took a nice room, and instead of sleeping on a petate mat, as she had hitherto done, bought herself a little bedstead, and even a mattress, treated herself not only to chocolate, but a few bottles of good wine. Such extraordinary luxury could not fail to create suspicion. She was questioned by her neighbours, and at length entrusted her secret to their keeping. History says that notwithstanding this she was not robbed, and was allowed to enjoy her good fortune in peace. It is difficult to credit such a miracle in this land of picking and stealing, but any authority is beyond impeachment. Whilst I write on these irrelevant matters, I am warned that the coaches are at the door, and that we are about setting off for Tepenacasco, another hacienda of Señor 's, a few leagues from this. End of letter the 16th.